Fast food. There's no denying fast food's high glycemic index and high quantities of salt, fats, including trans fats and saturated fats, carbohydrates, and calories mean it's not exactly good for you. But did you know it's also bad for your brain? People who eat fast food daily are 51% more likely to suffer from depression, according to a 2011 study published in the journal Public Health Nutrition. According to scientists, several bad effects on the brain have been linked to junk food consumption. Excessive use of high-calorie foods. Consuming junk food releases dopamine, giving us a powerful feel-good rush. But our brain responds by decreasing the number of dopamine receptors to get the same dopamine high with an elevated tolerance. Junk food consumption increases our dopamine tolerance. Regular junk food eaters can become depressed if they cannot satisfy their cravings. If you want to keep your mind and body in peak condition, you should limit your fast food intake. Soda. One recent study discovered that extra sugar in sweetened drinks can damage our cells, making us seem older, and that telomeres, the sections of our chromosomes connected to aging, can be shortened by drinking too much soda. Unfortunately, diet drinks aren't any better because they're stuffed with artificial sweeteners that can actually lead you to gain weight when you taste them. When we don't get the calories our brains were expecting, we're more likely to overeat later in the day. Hot dogs. Because processed meats increase your cancer risk, you should avoid eating hot dogs. However, hot dogs are also a leading cause of choking in children under 14 and should be served with extreme caution. It makes sense when you think about it. Hot dogs are soft, slippery, and the perfect size to suffocate a child's airway. Fruit juice. Even though fruit juice is not technically a meal, it is made from food, so I will talk about it nonetheless. You may be surprised to learn that calorie for calorie, fruit juice is worse for you than fizzy beverages, according to the US obesity expert Dr. Robert Lustig. Juice consumption was associated with a 24% higher risk of death from all causes when compared to drinking no soda at all, according to a 2019 study of 14,440 American adults. So why are juice so bad for us? Well, most of the sugar in fruit is fructose, which has some pretty unhealthy side effects, is addictive, and can fool our brains into thinking we're getting more nutrients than we actually are. The fiber in fruits counteracts these effects by slowing the absorption of fructose and helping us feel full, while juicing releases the sugars in fruit and breaks apart most of its fiber, making it a poor substitute for eating fruit. Cherries. What if I told you that every cherry contains a lethal poison? There is no danger in eating the cherry flesh, but the pit has a naturally occurring component called amygdalin that our bodies break down into the well-known poison cyanide if consumed in substantial amounts. Cherry pit poison is found in the seeds at its center and is indigestible, so don't be alarmed if you mistakenly swallow one. It will pass through your system unaffected and prevent your body from absorbing the dangerous substance buried inside. However, if you cut, crush, or chew the pit, the poison may enter your bloodstream and prevent your cells from using oxygen. The amount of amygdalin in a whole varies from cherry to cherry, but 2 to 3 are usually enough to cause potentially fatal symptoms. Bagels. So would you believe me if I told you that bagels are one of the most dangerous foods in your kitchen? Well, it's true, but not for the typical reasons that make food deadly. Over 2,000 Americans wind up in the emergency room after cutting their hands while preparing bagels every year. According to researchers at Emory University, the majority of bris is sustained on the non-dominant hand that holds the slippery bagel during the treacherous cutting process. Keep an eye on your hands, folks. Pasta and rice. Did you know that if you leave cooked rice or pasta out of the fridge for too long, spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus commonly live in uncooked pasta and rice and can survive the cooking process? When a rice or pasta dish is left to sit for several hours at room temperature, these spores can grow into bacteria that multiply and secrete harmful toxins known as enterotoxins once absorbed by our bodies. Further cooking or reheating will not remove the toxins from your food, and several strains of this hardy bacteria are cold tolerant, which means they can survive and multiply even when the dish is stored in the fridge. While it's not 100% effective, getting those leftovers in the refrigerator as soon as possible is still your best bet for avoiding a bowl of rice or pasta-related demise. Nutmeg. If your favorite holiday spice contains myristicin, it can cause hallucinations, vomiting, and even death if absorbed into the body. Myristicin simulates the release of a protein called cytochrome C, which causes cell death and, in significant amounts, leads to organ failure. As a result, just 1 teaspoon of nutmeg is highly toxic. Fortunately, most recipes that call for nutmeg call for only a modest amount that may serve numerous people, but be careful not to overdo it on your eggnog, because myristicin could make you feel like death and see double if you overdo it. Farmed salmon. Despite its abundance of omega-3 fatty acids, the fish is tainted with toxic chemicals, particularly Norwegian specimens of the fish. In electrical equipment, PCBs were employed for insulation, but they're known to disrupt the immune system and create reproductive difficulties when taken by humans unintentionally. So how did these chemicals wind up in Norwegian farmed salmon? The ground remains of small fish, which contain trace amounts of PCBs and other harmful industrial chemicals, are fed to farmed salmon due to improper waste disposal by factories along the waterways they inhabit. When multiple fish are concentrated into a single pellet, the result is unusually high in these chemicals. Cashew nuts. Even if you've had a few raw cashews in the past, they've been roasted or boiled to remove potentially harmful chemicals. The seeds of a sweet sour fruit known as the cashew apple are what fully raw cashews look like, and the fruits themselves are edible. Even a small amount of raw, deshelled cashew nuts could kill you if they contain the poison ivy-causing compound urushiol, which can cause severe skin reactions and even death if consumed. If you don't cook them first, you'd have to be a total nut to eat them raw. Processed meat. You may not like this news, but there are some alarming consequences to eating processed meat if you're a meat eater. Salami, bacon, and sausages have all been classed as Group 1 carcinogens by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, meaning that scientists are confident that consuming processed meat raises your risk of cancer based on a plethora of rigorous studies. The issue stems from the preparation of processed beef. Our bodies convert nitrates and nitrites into compounds called nitrosamines, which damage our DNA and increase our risk of developing cancer over time. In fact, a study of 500,000 UK meat eaters discovered that eating 76 grams of red or processed meat per day, the equivalent of just 3 slices of ham, increases your risk of bowel cancer by 20%. This does not imply that you must become a vegan, but nutritionists agree that limiting your red and processed meat consumption is a good idea. Sushi. If I told you that your sushi might come with a side of parasitic worms, would you still eat it? According to a recent global study, sushi-grade fish are becoming more common. Parasitic worms are 283 times more common in infectious diseases than in the general population. Although tapeworms have taken up residence in people's bodies after eating low-quality sushi regularly, these occurrences are rare because most sushi chefs are trained to remold the fish. Raw almonds. No matter how innocent they appear, picking wild almonds should be approached with caution. Sweet almonds, commonly known, are the kind sold in stores. Even a tiny handful of raw, bitter, or wild almonds can cause severe poisoning, while between 7 and 50 will kill you, depending on your weight, because they contain amygdalin. The same component you'll find in cherry pits breaks down into cyanide when ingested. Eggs. For years, scientists have been arguing whether eggs' high cholesterol content is harmful for our health. Cholesterol is a fatty substance that our bodies use to build cells, but too much cholesterol can clog our blood vessels, restricting blood flow and increasing heart disease risk. In fact, A 2019 study of 30,000 adults found that for each half an egg eaten per day, the risk of heart disease increased. Eggs have many health benefits, so cutting them out entirely may not be a good idea. Research has linked phosphatidylcholine, a nutrient found in eggs, with a lower risk of Alzheimer's, and the American Heart Association suggests that up to 7 eggs per week can be part of a healthy diet. Remember to cook them thoroughly, as raw eggs can carry salmonella, a bacteria that can cause severe food poisoning.